Canada goes to the polls on Monday in snap elections, and the campaign has been dominated by a man who is not even on the bill, US President Donald Trump. He has repeatedly suggested that Canada should become the 51st US state. Some see his recent tariffs as a way of crippling the economy to enable a takeover. So how did Trump's annexation idea emerge? And what does he want from the state of Canada? DW's Joe Delroy tries to find out.
A dinner where Canada was on the menu. At his Mar-a-Lago resort last November, Donald Trump proposed the US should swallow its northern neighbour. The Canadians there thought he was joking, but the punchline soon became policy with a plan to achieve it.
Economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something.
He claimed Canadians would be better off as Americans, though perhaps not its Prime Minister, who he preemptively downgraded.
I spoke to Governor Trudeau on numerous occasions, and we'll see what happens. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. So I think Canada is going to be a very serious contender to be our 51st state.
So what does Trump want from Canada in return? An open door for Wall Street for a start.
They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in.
Although 16 US banks do already operate there, most don't meet the requirements to run retail branches, something Trump wants to change.
And Canada's been tough on the military because they have a very low military cost.
Trump thinks he should be Canada's commander-in-chief. He berates Canada for failing to meet its NATO military spending pledge of 2% of GDP. Canada's large Arctic frontier offers appealing real estate where the US could set up camp. There's a wealth of water up north, and Trump wants more of it to flow to his thirsty southern states, calling Canada's rivers a faucet to be opened. And if he can't conquer Canada, Trump thinks the frontier should shift. He said that treaties which govern their border and control of the Great Lakes were invalid and could be abandoned.
The Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country.
Trump's takeover threats have boosted Canada's recently appointed Prime Minister Mark Carney. His Liberal Party goes into snap elections with a lead as Canadians seek stability and rally around their flag. They're voting to put Canada first instead of 51st.
We are now joined by Fen Osler Hampson, Professor at Carleton's University Norman Paterson School of International Affairs in Ottawa. Professor, the tensions, as we've just heard, with Trump have given a boost to the current Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberals ahead of the elections. Now, how should the next government position Canada with regard to Trump?
Well, President Trump said on Wednesday that Canada, he said it again, Canada would cease to exist if it weren't for the United States. And I think the challenge for Canada's new government, which will be elected on Monday, is to present itself as a key player in rectifying U.S. trade balances, but also as essential to future U.S. growth and prosperity. I mean, we provide key inputs at globally competitive prices to U.S. manufacturers and consumers. That's particularly true when it comes to our natural resources, our energy sales to the United States. We're also a key market for U.S. automobile manufacturers, agri-food exports, intermediate U.S. goods and services. We could be a trusted and secure supplier of critical minerals, which right now come largely from China. And I think, one of the challenges, obviously, is to show that we can be a trusted defense and security partner by taking care of security in our own Arctic. We don't need the Americans to do that for us.
Now, you have put forward a list of recommendations for how Canada should handle the Trump administration. Besides what you just said, what is really at the top of that list?
Well, I think the main challenge, and President Trump and Mark Carney, they had a call a couple of weeks ago. They agreed to start negotiations on economics and security sometime after the election. But I think the main challenge is going to be to save the proverbial furniture in the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement, which was negotiated during the first Trump administration. But at the same time, I wouldn't rush into negotiations. I think we all know at the end of the day, U.S. policies are going to be driven by U.S. interests. And the pain that is beginning to be experienced by U.S. consumers and producers from Trump's tariffs, price increases, job losses that we're already beginning to see. And Canada will be in a much stronger bargaining position vis-a-vis the United States if we just keep our tinder dry. Wait until Trump is feeling acute political pressure to dial back on tariffs and to start behaving in a more responsible way with his key trading partners.
Speaking of tariffs, is Canada already feeling the pinch there?
Yes, we are. The tariffs that he's put on automobiles, on steel and aluminum, have seen a number of temporary plant closures. There's a real sense that our automobile manufacturing sector, which employs roughly some 100,000 workers, is at risk. When it comes to energy and commodity exports, less so. The Americans need what we sell. They don't have other places to get it at the competitive prices that we sell, for example, our oil and gas to the United States. American consumers are going to have to absorb the price increases from Trump's tariffs. I think the bigger concern, though, and this is obviously a concern to Europeans as well, is Trump's tariff war with the Chinese, which could really trigger a global recession, have an enormous impact on financial markets, and that's going to hurt Canada. It's going to hurt our exports if the U.S. falls into a recession. We're already on the cusp of a recession, quite frankly. We're going to take a big hit because they're our biggest trading partner.
Now, the US and Canada have been good neighbors and relying on each other, trading with each other for many, many years. And now you've said that the US has become unreliable to the point of hostility. What does it do to a country like Canada if a good friend and a powerful friend suddenly turns against them?
Well, as you said, I mean, Canadians and Americans have a shared history. We have common values. We have very deep commercial ties. Canadians in the winter like to leave the snowdrifts here to go to warmer places, generally in the United States and states like, Florida and California. But I think, Trump has really, sort of fundamentally changed the tenor of that relationship. Even if he does withdraw tariffs and, stops talking about annexing Canada, I think there's a really profound sense here among Canadians that relations are not going to go back to the way they were. We cannot assume that we will not again become the target of U.S. actions to undermine our sovereignty or economic well-being. And I think it's fair to say there's a real desire to deepen our trading and security ties with Europe, which has obviously been a long-standing partner. We do have a free trade agreement now with the Europeans. Certainly, Mark Carney has said he wants to really put the pedal to the metal there and to start reducing our dependence on the United States economically and doing more with security partners, particularly in Europe.
Fen Osler Hampson there. Thank you very much for this insight.
My pleasure.
Now let's bring in Martha Hall Findlay. She's Director of the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary, and she's also a Member of Parliament, served in the Opposition Cabinet for International Trade. Thanks for joining us. Now, you, along with other experts, have published a paper recommending the Canadian government should resist the temptation to rush into negotiations with the Trump administration. That seems counterintuitive. Is time on Canada's side, you think?
Well, I think what we've seen is the behavior of President Trump is so volatile that there really is a sense of don't rush into negotiations. One, it's very hard to feel as though anything can be trusted anymore. So what would we actually be negotiating for? I mean, the free trade arrangement that we have in North America, the Canada, U.S., Mexico trade agreement, CUSMA, USMCA, when it was done in Donald Trump's first term, he called it very, very loudly, as he does, the best trade agreement in the world ever. And that's exactly what he completely ripped up when he came into office again. And so fundamentally, there's a significant lack of trust. So why rush into negotiations when you don't actually have something to really negotiate with? There's no trust. Even if one were to sign an agreement tomorrow, given his treatment of the last one, it's not at all clear that he would adhere to another one. And so there's a sense now, especially as the weeks are going by and seeing the volatility and him changing his mind all the time, there's a sense of let's not react all the time. Let's pull back. Let's really concentrate on what is in Canada's best interests, which is important, our economic situation, our military situation. And really concentrate on what we would need as opposed to a feeling that we were reacting rather too quickly.
Now, the US takes around 75% of all Canadian exports, so Trump certainly has some leverage there. What do you think Canada has to fear most with Trump calling the shots in Washington?
Well, he has a fair bit to fear as well. I mean, we do actually supply a tremendous amount of oil and gas to the United States. Their Gulf Coast refinery complex depends on our oil. 80% of the potash that is used by American farmers comes from Canada. So there are actually levers that both countries can use. I think for us, the talk about the 51st state, the talk about, the absolutely insulting behavior toward our former prime minister and referring to the governor of the state, it would be laughable if it weren't so serious. I mean, we are seeing very serious demands with respect to Greenland. There is interest certainly in the resources that we have. We have an added concern because we also have Russia to the north. So we have significant Russian presence in the Arctic to the north of Canada, obviously the significant presence to the south. So we're not just dealing with the United States. I think just like Europe, we're also dealing with what we can no longer count on the United States being a significant military ally as well. So there are a number of things in play right now.
So elections are coming up. Mark Carney looks like the next Prime Minister. What's your top recommendation for the next government?
Well, we've been very consistent in saying whoever becomes government, Canada has to look after its first and foremost its own best interests. We are dealing with lower productivity in our economy. We have internal trade barriers. It's harder to trade between Ontario and New Brunswick than within the European Union. It's a bit shocking. And that harms our economic prosperity and our opportunities. And so we have a lot of work to do. We also, frankly, have a lot of work to do to enhance our military. We've really let that go in the last couple of decades, but we shouldn't be doing these things for Donald Trump. We should be doing these things for Canada. Diversifying our trade. We are extraordinarily trade dependent as a country, and too dependent on the United States. We do have oceans. We have coasts to the west. We have coasts to the east, coasts to the north. So the opportunity for us to really focus on how do we diversify our trade? How do we develop more and more substantial export markets for what we have and for what the world needs. How do we build the trade infrastructure? We have to enhance our ports, our east-west infrastructure capabilities, regardless of who forms government as of this coming Monday. Those are absolutely the recommendations that we're making.
Martha Hall Findlay there, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.